I knew I was different long before it had a name, long before it had a shame. I grew up in Bible Belt, Oklahoma, and it wasn't allowed. And I don't know exactly when it was, I mean, certainly by puberty, but before that I knew that I was different, not like the others. And I expressed myself through my creativity and my singing and my imagination. I knew I wasn't like the other boys, but I didn't know what that was or that anything was terribly wrong with it until I got older. And I was told pretty clearly, this is not good.
And how were you told?
I was called faggot. I was called queer. I was called names across the school lawn or passing in the halls of the school. I was bullied. I found my tribe within some of the theater kids and within writing and creating, and kind of lived in a bit of a denial about where I was because it's a survival tool. But I left home when I was 15 years old for a job. I knew I had talent, and I knew that that made me unique, and that's where my focus went. And I was driven. So I left home for a job at 15, came back for a couple of months, and then left for good. And left Oklahoma. My parents were supportive because they felt like they didn't have a choice. I fell in love when I was 16 years old. And it changed, you know, everything. I felt alive. I loved him, and I knew he loved me. And then I had to go back home to my little town where it was forbidden. And I recognized that this beautiful thing that I experienced was a symbol of something that could never happen, that I could never have a normal life, that I could never, the idea of marriage was something that would never have even occurred to me to fantasize about. It wasn't even in the parameters of my mind. And it became very dark, and I attempted a suicide, and I had clearly unsuccessful. And I had a psychology teacher in my high school who told me that nothing was wrong with me and showed me that in 1973, 5 years prior, that homosexuality had been declassified as a mental disorder. And he gave me the book, and I read it, and it said, same-sex attractions, feelings, and behaviors are normal variations of human sexuality. And I remember thinking, how can this be? Because I lived in an environment that certainly didn't know that. So I left and have lived a pretty happy life. I was in the closet for some time, even though everybody, of course, knew. I should say in the closet, meaning like all my friends knew, all of the industry knew. I was a working, you know, actor and singer. I was touring the world. I was making records. I was doing all this stuff. I had quite a bit of notoriety. But like my record company, this was in a time where I would take a woman to the Grammys. This is, you know. And then finally, I thought, I never lied, but I never told the truth. And finally, long overdue, I came out in an advocate feature, and it was like, duh. But there was, even at that point, a freedom. I am now in a relationship that I've been in 23 years. My husband and I, we were married in 2008 during the window. And we have a 10-year-old son who is the center of our lives. And I have the normal life that I never, ever could have fantasized about. But I see what's happening now, and I'm afraid. Not for myself. No one can take what I have. But I'm afraid that if we forget where we've come from because of the likes of not only the larger-than-life characters, like Harvey Milk. But the everyday people who live their truth against all odds, the people who didn't move to Los Angeles or New York, which is I've spent most of my life, the people who live in the place that I grew up, the people who live in the South, and they live their truth, and they have their partner, or their husband, or their wife, and they don't succumb to the prejudice around them. Those are the heroes, not just the people who are marching and waving a flag, the people who live their truth every single day, the bank tellers and the grocery clerks and the teachers. This is going to sound so slanted, prejudicial. People who want children who can't biologically have them are fucking great parents. We work so hard. First of all, to adopt, you jump through so many hoops. As a gay couple, you jump through even more. And you want to be your best self. You want to be your best person. We are the first generation who are openly, legally adopting. There are certainly gay people in the past who've had children through a heterosexual relationship and then come out and then they raise a child with another same-sex person. But we're the first. So there is a microscope on us for our marriage and for our children. And there is an incumbent responsibility to be better. Being a father is the greatest gift and privilege of my life. I live in an environment in Los Angeles where it's not a big deal. My kid knows it's an untraditional family, but it's not a big deal. None of his friends nor their parents is it a big deal. It's just his circumstances, and it's just our circumstances. And hallelujah that we live in a time where that's even possible, because it informs those other kids too, not just ours. That they're playing over at the kid who has two dads. It is normal, and we are damn good parents.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was wonderful.